Hi, everyone. My name is Mica Fernandez, and today I'll be sharing my Tiger Challenge project. So before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I just finished my first year at Princeton, and it was an enriching year of meeting people from all walks of life. You see, I was born in Peru and raised in Miami, where I had the privilege of growing up within a diverse Hispanic community. However, connecting with other Latinos on campus was still an eye-opening experience. Okay, so I'd like to introduce you to Maria, which is a friend that I made in one of my classes this last semester. Maria was a first year like me and an international student from Ecuador. One day I was studying for fall finals with Maria, and we started talking about our favorite Christmas time traditions. I found out that she wouldn't be able to go home that Christmas because it had gotten too expensive and she'd be staying on campus during winter break. I told her about how my extended family in Peru usually held a Zoom meeting on Christmas when they couldn't fly out so that we could at least share each other's companies. As soon as Maria got the sense that I could understand her situation in one way or another, she continued opening up about her transition to Princeton. Like many of us, she was having a hard time in her classes, but it went a little bit further than that. It was the first time that she had submitted all of her academic work in English, which made her anxious to submit most assignments. And she felt like she hadn't truly connected with anyone in her classes, her Z group, or orientation group. And she just missed her social life back home. She missed her friends and being able to communicate in Spanish. She worried that she would never find that same style of friendships and community at Princeton. I carefully listened to Maria's story and realized that I hadn't considered some of the struggles that different people could be going through. You can imagine that when I was prompted to think about mental health for Tiger Challenge, I thought about Maria's struggles. The mental health crisis on campuses nationwide was evident, but there was such a large variety in mental health experiences that there was no one solution that could help everyone. Though every mental health experience is important, Maria made me think of all the additional stressors that international students face. My initial research gave me insights into the unique challenges that international students encounter, ranging from language barriers and cultural differences to homesickness, among other factors. Like I said, those experiences can have a significant impact on their mental health, exposing them to additional academic and social stress. As my research progressed, I came across a significant study conducted by Wilton and Constantine, which are two expert psychologists, which focus on the cultural adjustment difficulties and psychological distress symptoms among international college students. Remarkably, their findings highlighted that Latin American international students in particular reported higher levels of psychological distress compared to their peers. This revelation sparked a more focused direction in my research. What did set Latin Americans apart, and why did they experience higher levels of stress? Well, it came down to two potential implications or reasons. First, the relatively small percentage of Latino students on campus meant that they had access to fewer informal resources, like just a supportive peer network. And second, the cultural values of Latinos could exacerbate certain stressors like homesickness more than other student groups. Here at Princeton, only 11% of our student body is made up of students who identify as Hispanic. As you can see by the chart on the right, only 12% of Princeton students are international students or temporary US residents. This implies that the Latino population among international students is very small, and it would make sense that students felt a lack of support or belonging due to a smaller population of students from similar backgrounds. In exploring the second implication, I searched for cultural values that most, if not all, Latin Americans shared. The results came down to familismo, simpatía, and personalismo. Familismo described the importance of the family unit and staying active and involved in your family life, including your extended family. Simpatía or sympathy depicted smooth social relations and politeness as a key value. And personalismo described the preference for forming tight-knit personal relationships and the value of trust, inclusion, and mutual help giving within these relationships. What all of these values had in common was the importance of social relationships and bonds in Latin cultures. which brought me back to the question of why. Why did these values impact the Latino international student experience in an aggravating way? Gaining a better understanding of what shaped the international student experience and what shaped the Latino experience made me realize that this was an issue pertaining to mental wellness. Mental wellness is incredibly important in preventing mental health and illnesses and should be a greater focus in the existing mental health crisis. A large aspect of mental wellness is connection and meaning. And for this project, I decided to focus on the social dimension of mental wellness. It was important to me to continue tailoring my research to specific communities, so I began to ask Princeton students and faculty members for help. In my first few interviews, I focused on understanding the experience of international students and found that my assumptions were correct in this context. Mental health specialists recognized the sense of isolation and the lack of familiarity that international students faced because of cultural barriers. International students talked about overwhelming and lonely moments at the start of their transitions. Importantly, I learned that existing programming for international students focused on preparing students for changes and culture shocks that they would experience by teaching them about American culture and American norms. So as I continued my interviews, I focused on the needs of Latino international students and their personal experiences relieving stress. Many reported the ease of connecting with students from similar backgrounds, just as Maria had mentioned. And one student believed that sharing Latin culture made it easier to have meaningful conversations and form deeper connections as opposed to American students. Others said that having similar experiences and shared mentalities drew them into creating more relationships with other Latino students. Others simply sought finding comfort in people who looked like them. I began to see a pattern in my interviews and my findings. When I asked students what made them feel a sense of home and belonging, it all came down to people and culture. Students described feeling happy and connected when they got to share their culture with the people they loved, via food, music, dance, and other cultural experiences. It became clear that mental wellness and social well-being were strongly interconnected to a sense of belonging. Students made it clear that the promotion of a community with shared values like familismo, simpatía, and personalismo made them feel a sense of belonging and a sense of home. So we went further by asking Latino students what community meant to them. They described a place without judgment, a place for support, and a place for authenticity. Community to them was a second home and a second family. So that's where the Casa Extendida project comes in. Our social mission is to create this vibrant and inclusive community for Latin American international students. We want to provide a sense of familiarity and create a place for cultural appreciation to uplift Latin American international students. Fortunately, this project will continue to develop over the fall and spring semesters, where we will shift our focus to developing a solution. We will ask ourselves, how might we develop wellness and support strategies that are tailored to the Latin American international student experience? Some potential approaches to this question may focus on cultural showcases to highlight and exhibit different Latin cultures. The team may focus on local collaborations, where we may foster relationships with local Latino communities and allow students to engage and contribute to local culture and community. Or instead, we could focus on informal peer mentoring, where students will gain a sense of guidance and familiarity. Whichever approach we take, Casa Extendida will work towards the same goal. We envision expanding to personalized, enriching experiences for all international students, fostering a sense of familiarity and appreciation for their respective cultures. This project intends to provide students with a reminder of home while promoting diversity and cross-cultural understanding on campus. So that's what sets our project apart. We step away from generalizing the mental health crisis and instead narrow in on why any certain group is struggling. The needs and struggles of college students may vary very widely, and by taking a step towards personalized relief efforts, we may drastically improve the mental climate at Princeton. So I encourage you to join us in creating a more supportive and inclusive campus environment for Latin American international students. Together, we can bridge the gap in mental health support, celebrate diversity, and empower students to thrive during their transformative college experience. Thank you. And if you have any questions or would like to discuss any aspect of my research, I welcome your inquiries and feedback.
Check out the full playlist from this year's 50 Days of Summer or visit kellercenter.princeton.edu/Tiger Challenge to learn more. Subscribe for more videos on entrepreneurship, design and design thinking, societal impact, and innovation coming out of Princeton University.